Good morning and welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. Hello, good morning.
Happy Tuesday, gentlemen. Happy Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday.
It is a great Tuesday. Dude, we are now in the full crux of like school, right? For your kids.
Yes,
I mean,
everyone's
into the swing of things.
Everyone's in the swing of
100%.
things.
Yep.
So I'm still relatively new to the school game with kids. We're getting really into the thick of it. How do you guys separate the office area or where their desks are? Because right now I have a first grader and a pre-K, and there's more and more need of not having 1,000 papers on tables.
Trash can.
Speaking, cool. Okay. So no, how you guys are much more organized than I am in the physical world.
My wife is.
So we, yeah, right. Actually, I am. But don't tell her that. We'll just air it out to the world. Shh.
Good thing she doesn't listen to the podcast.
It's a good thing. You can guarantee our wives are probably not listening to us talk more. They've had enough of it at home.
Yes, very true.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Organization of papers is a problem because, especially towards the end of the year, stuff comes back in like droves. We're killing full forests at school these days and bringing everything home.
And I'm not saying like the 1,000 E's that she's drawing is important. But so how do you set up, like, do you have their desk in another room? Do you do it in their bedroom? Do you
you're talking their
basement?
Their desk area, like where they
their workstation, their own workstation.
They both have a desk set up in their room.
In their room. Okay, see, I didn't want that. Okay.
See, we have desks.
My wife's always right.
No, we didn't put desks in our room though. We put desks in another room of the house. So there's all three of them have their desks together. And you're right, Tommy. Like every couple days, it's like a snowstorm, right? It just starts piling up. And then someone comes in the room and says, clean this stuff up. And then everyone cleans things up and it figures itself out. But our kids are a little bit older than your kids. So
yeah. I'm prepping because my girls are so good, and my son, I'm raising a gorilla. He's a good-hearted soul. He's a good kid, but man, just maybe it's going from two girls straight to a boy, and he's
different.
They're
very different.
Yeah, and there's just things I'm like, okay, that's gonna break a window. That's gonna break a window. So I'm trying to plan for that. Yeah, I don't know what to do.
So it's interesting that you didn't have a follow-up question, right? Because it's kind of two things. Where do the kids do their work and where does everything pile up?
And how do I chain my son up?
My kids have desks in the room. They don't use them.
That's true. Good point.
Everything is done on the kitchen island, and that is just where things accumulate until someone comes through and swipes it across into the corner of the kitchen where that piles up, probably for the week at least, and then things are discarded.
So what you're telling me, there's really no hope.
I think it depends on where your piles are as parents, and then periodically you clean them up.
That's a great topic.
There's another. You were also commenting on like the kids practicing their letters over and over again. I found for my daughters, they like the idea of having like a little notebook. So something that was not just loose paper everywhere.
I'm writing that down.
So we got them like a smaller kind of notebook thing, just with some paper with some lines in it. And then my youngest daughter just sits there and, she would at night before she goes to bed or she's not tired yet, she'll just sit there and write or practice things there. So she was actually really diligent around practicing her handwriting. That seems to work because it's kind of like a fun little extra thing. And that way you're not practicing just random pieces of paper, but you're practicing in a place where it's collected at least. So that would be one trick or tip or trick that I would give there. I'm trying to think about like where do we put things in general. So with their desks came like a pull-out drawer, and with that came like a little shelf organizer. So we bought some IKEA stuff.
I knew you were going to say IKEA.
It's IKEA. And so that helped out a little bit as well, just because then we have like, okay, if the papers go, we kind of had to like help them label things a little bit. Like, okay, the small things, the rulers, the pencils, they go here, right? The papers and things go here, right? It's still a mess, but at least there's a door on it, so you can at least kind of shut the mess out a little bit too. So that might also help.
Our schools, to your school, like ours have, and maybe part of this has reduced the amount of paperwork. Like they are really diligent around the binder. Do you guys have this or no?
We have
Like
a
Our
full
school has no paper. We just use Power BI for everything.
I built a power app for my child. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we only use Power Apps.
The binder is a big thing in our school.
Yeah,
so
we
like
have binders
a
too.
lot
We
of
do a lot of folders.
a lot of the loose stuff gets consumed into that thing.
Best notes I've
Anyway.
taken in 10 episodes by far.
All
Maybe
right.
I need a 3-ring binder.
I think
Ooh.
I do too.
Yeah, to print off all my paginated reports. All my paginated reports. I'll print them all out.
Yeah.
I'll put them in my binder.
Introducing
So I can
paginated
email them
reports.
to myself and print them on my printer.
PBI binder.
Yeah.
Better yet, binder Jupyter notebooks.
That's a huge
Yeah, there you
idea
go.
right there.
Yeah.
Nope.
I do enjoy that.
Notebooks. Yeah. The Power BI
Binder
binder.
Jupyter notebooks works until you have an error, and then you get like 60 pages of error because the error message is just so stinking long.
Stop being so efficient. Slow down and print. That's what our topic is about today, right?
Excellent. So a couple internet updates across the web here. So one of the ones I'd like to point out here is an article that came out from the Microsoft Fabric blog, and this is talking more around the upcoming not changes in Fabric, but there's we're getting closer to getting to general availability of Fabric as it's being rolled out. And with that comes some additional charges, some other features. They're doing a lot more explanation as preparing you for what will be coming inside. Sounds like they're trying to release it in October based on this article message. I'm not really sure if that's the actual go live date with a lot of Fabric things, but we're getting close at that point with the Microsoft Fabric blog. So I'll put that in the chat here. Any reactions to this one? Did you guys get a chance to read this one?
I ripped through parts of it, and like the capacity metric, like how and where you're using things are coming through here. That is pretty exciting, because I know that's been a big boon of like
I agree.
Where is this happening? How much is it going to cost?
And
I mean, that's not part of this, right?
To your point, though, also I'm also looking at the OneLake storage reporting and capacity metrics. That's going to be very interesting. And my initial thought came with this was, cool. I'm able to make Delta tables from Power Query. I'm able to make Delta tables in my lake. I can load it in there, no problem. What happens when I want to clean up that data? And one thing I'm not very clear about right now is inside a notebook or inside a Dataflows Gen 2, right? Does the Dataflow Gen 2 automatically clean up old Parquet files when they're not being used? My suspicion is no, because I have not seen any documentation on this. So the idea being, like, let's say, for example, you load a series of files every single day. Yeah. All those files are generating new Parquet files because Delta is an immutable file format. Parquet files are immutable. You don't create new one. You don't update old ones. You just create new ones. And so they update these files. So as you edit, every time you edit or optimize or do something to a table, if you're making transactional changes on a table, you're just creating more files, which is fine. But in Databricks, what I'm familiar with is there's this step called optimize and vacuum. So optimize takes the files that you have, consolidates them down to a single amount, and then the vacuum step actually goes through and removes the files. So, as you're making new data, the old data or things or old files that you're no longer using anymore, they kind of slowly disappear.
Yeah, but that's not what vacuum is doing. Vacuum's just cleaning up like old versions of things. Like you need a different step if you're like, I have a data threshold I no longer need to keep.
Yes, correct.
In this table.
Right? No, but yes, but I mean, it's a lot of those vacuuming of the old files that are no longer being referenced by the.
But there's no. But think about like no, Fabric isn't doing that right out of the gate. But neither.
I don't know.
Any other.
It's more of a mystery to me.
You have to manage. Well, okay. So that's your question.
Yes.
Are they going to manage your storage so it doesn't explode?
Or they're just going to let it go crazy?
Can I get a button on that? Here's my threshold. Right. Just keep things clean for me.
I mean, and I can do that a little bit inside. I don't know if notebooks have a vacuum equivalent step yet, but I do want to vacuum that in my notebooks. But data flows, what about data flows? What about that? How does that work? Because I can load data in through a data flow. There's from my understanding, there's no vacuum step today. I'm
personally intrigued on the visual side when it comes to the new capacity storage and how they're showing it, because right now you can explore that Fabric capacity's usage, but I don't want to say it's cryptic, but it does not, I think, from an administration point of view, both from if you're looking at cost and just saying what in the world's happening in my tenant, it's pretty difficult to have a pretty good idea, like kind of walk in, jump in, and get what you need. So some of the things I'm looking at, from the explore graph to the drill through, like I hope that from the visual side out of the box, they give us what we need, from both where are artifacts and then what's getting used. Like if there's a data flow that's one particular data flow, not all data flows that are taking up consumption, and when they are, and who's in charge of that. Very similar to the premium capacity app. That I am looking forward to.
I'm cautiously optimistic around what you say there, Tommy, because I've already seen how well they've done reporting on the existing Power BI tenant.
Yes.
And then now we're adding a whole bunch of other Fabric capability pieces here. And this is kind of been my one hesitation with Fabric since day one is, great, we're getting a lot of new features and capabilities, but do I really have the ability to administer and govern it and tune it the way I need to? I mean, if we have unlimited money, sure, we'll just turn everything on, let everyone run wild, no problem. But I'm not going to do that. And organizations are going to continue to cost optimize their environment. They want to make sure that it's running the right things at the right times. So I'm not sure if we're going to be there yet, day one.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
There was a key piece in here that there is a blurb that we should lean into, which is
might have caught the same blurb I did.
No, you're right. September 30th is the deadline for when the preview period for basically for free capacity is done.
Yes.
Whoa.
So starting October 1st, workload usage will count against capacity limits, and capacity limits will be enforced.
Yes.
So starting October 1st, you're going to see just how much
this is costing you.
Dive in right now. Like if you're using stuff, right? Like you've got to understand how much you're spending in these capacity metrics, right? Before it turns on and that becomes part of your bill.
So to reiterate, Seth, on October 1st, anything you're doing in Fabric, you're actually going to have to pay for.
That is what I'm reading.
So this is also my question as
10
well.
Days before. Wow. Thanks.
Well, and so I just read that and thought, okay, when I go into Fabric right now, as I look at my Fabric today, it still says 59 days left on my.
I had mine too.
So does that mean 59 days goes to 0 days and 10 days, or does 59 days go to like 58 days on October 1st? I'm not sure exactly what that means yet. So there's a little bit not clarity there yet.
Or do I need to spend 3 hours deleting a lot of workspaces?
Or that.
Yeah.
Anyway, lock into the article. Good read.
Yeah, very good read.
Check it out.
I think another couple of notes they make here is one security. It's not even out yet. So I don't even know what that looks like. I don't know what that means. It's coming with Fabric. It's noted in their little image there at the top. They have a single security model, which I think is the reference to one security. So I'm interested also to see how that's going to roll out as well, because I don't think we actually have a full picture of how that's going to be interacted with inside Fabric. So that's
yeah. I have to mention also part of the article is probably like what they would want us to talk about right in the beginning is bursting and smoothing. So there is some detail about how the Fabric capacity is going to work.
But we're smarter than that.
Which is indicative.
or we're just...
we saw right through your shenanigans there.
Scroll to the bottom.
I will say, if you lead with bursting and smoothing, there's a reason why you're leading with bursting and smoothing. I'm just going to say that. We'll leave that one there. Anyways, the only other noteworthy note here for openers would be Power BI Desktop has now updated for September. There's a couple of release notes around that. I think most of the improvements around Power BI right now have been focused a lot on Fabric. They're getting that out the door. And also with a now October 1st due date for things to go real, there's probably a lot of feverish pace of building of things code at the Microsoft level. So we didn't really see a ton inside the Power BI Desktop. There's a couple modeling changes. You now have the mobile layout interactive canvas, which is something I never use anyway. So hope you do. Thank you for building it, but I don't really need it. So anyways, there is a upgrade for Microsoft Desktop, Power BI.NET 7.4.72 and newer. I was really looking for that feature. I was very pleased and happy. I was wondering when we were going to get at least
put a smile on your face.
I personally won my Power BI bingo for the year with that. So,
anyways, not too much going on. All right, let's jump into our main topic today. So this is actually a carryover topic from, I believe it was last week on Thursday. I think as we started talking about this, and we kind of got a little bit into where should AI be applied. And I've been actually, LinkedIn knows me, right? LinkedIn knows I click on all the articles that have AI related things in there. And if there's a chart and AI bolted together, I'm really interested. So LinkedIn knows I like charts and AI all in the same stuff. And I was scrolling down through LinkedIn, and I saw an article that said companies are now doing studies around the efficiency of employees and whether or not they use or do not use AI in their workloads, or either developers, right? So how efficient is someone if they have or do not have AI or supplementing AI to support their workload? And as I was reading the article, it had two bell curves, and they had done a run against many different employees, and we're seeing how long it took them to achieve certain tasks. And all the employees that were either self-taught or had been trained in AI or had been learned how to be prompted, using prompting to get the answers they need, they were statistically more efficient than the employees that did not use that. So it feels to me like there is this growing knowledge base around, yeah, you may not have AI built into your programs, but you should start trying to use AI to do different things for you. And I'm finding personally, I'm getting better at understanding what prompts I need. And I think of anyone in this call or this podcast, Tommy is probably the most AI person I know right now. Tommy's got like libraries and libraries of things, and he's really studying it and trying to figure it out. So I need to learn more about where I can best apply the AI inside what we're building, whether it be reports, whether it be data modeling, whether it be measures for, like, I think everyone thinks, oh yeah, AI can write DAX measures. I think it does a lot more than that now. And we should open our minds around the space around where can AI be applied inside the BI realm.
You're seeing a lot of services now too. If you watch any football game now, there's like 18 commercials on how generative AI can help your business, Watson X, and all these things. And it's a whole lot of fluff with not a lot of word, like content.
Yes.
And so we're seeing there's kind of two areas, Mike, that you kind of highlighted. There's the independent, the individual user, the micro impact of this. Yes. And I think that organizational impact, I think we can focus from the BI point of view, where there is a major significant difference of utilizing AI in both aspects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a, I think there's actually a strategy around both of these things, right? So we talk about, me as a user, how do I interact with an AI thing? Where do I best use it? And then we could step back and say, okay, let's look at what the corporation is doing with AI. How are they using the corporate AI piece here? And I think this was where we got really excited last time we talked about this was, we need AI to help us design the requirements of a report. What if AI could capture the requirements or do some of these more mundane things inside this? And I'm actually very pro, why can't the AI document my data model, right? I saw I think this was a while ago, a tabular editor script. Someone was using ChatGPT, and they were sending the DAX formula. So it was in tabular editor. Someone had written a call. I think this was Darren Gospel, maybe, who did this one, but he basically had it, okay, for each measure in your model, send the measure to ChatGPT and explain the measure. And what would come back would be a paragraph or a 2 or 3 sentences that explains the business logic of what this DAX statement was doing. And so what was coming back was a human readable explanation of what was going on in the model, which I thought was genius, because what is the one thing that you don't do when you're building a model? You don't spend a lot of time thinking about how would someone consume this measure? What does it mean? And how would I give an explanation as to how it works? The AI could just figure it out.
I would be interested to know, for you guys personally, has AI seeped into any of your workflows?
I would say yes, my non-technical workflows especially. Right. So, and what I mean by that is being in a position, I manage a team. I have a lot of strategy conversations, et cetera. So like interviewing people, job descriptions, roles and responsibilities, like especially in use cases where it's like I need a new role written, like job description of like, hey, we're gonna like upgrade you or we're gonna promote you. Here are your new responsibilities, and then it's just like the bullet points. Here are the new roles and things, and it's like create a, what I would like you to do is write this, format in the form of a business letter. But it just cuts down on a lot of the administrative type activities that you any workflow. It's not necessarily business intelligence, right? But a lot of the administrative stuff, it at least just gives you a framework that you can edit quickly, right? Because it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to like copy pasta something into your business, but at the same time, like, it absolutely is something that speeds up that workflow and reduces your time spent in trying to word things appropriately, et cetera, et cetera. The other areas I think you already addressed, right? Related to business engagement, right? Trying to figure out like what a form looks like for requirements gathering. How, like setting up processes. Like give me ideas of like what should my business intelligence workflow do? Or if here's my input parameters, here's what I'm trying to do. Like just give you cycle things that you may not spend a lot of time on that could exponentially help your workflow. Another way to do that is just listen to our podcast a long time. Like we went through all these things of like, how do you create your workflow? But at the same time, like to me, it's an idea generator, right? Like I know I want to do this thing. I have 3 of the steps, but are there other things I need to be aware of? And that's where I found a lot of usage so far.
That's a really good point. I don't think I've used those as far as that administrative workflows. I will say this. I built an entire website using AI. That kind of became a thing.
That's cool.
You did. That's right.
Yeah. The website fabricators.tips. That's the one that we kind of, it's just a fun little, it started out as a fun little experiment. I was like, I wonder if I can build a website. And so I bought a domain name, fabricators.tips. I went over to ChatGPT and I said, okay, I just literally fat fingered, build me a website around being a fabricator, someone who works in AI and BI and does all these things. And like literally it spit out all the text. I was like, great. And the website started as, just letting AI generate most of it. Now, I did use an editor, so it was like what you see is what you get.
WYSIWYG,
WYSIWYG editor, and I used that to kind of like take the code or the words that was out of the one website and dropped it into the website. But then what happened was I got excited about being a fabricator after I had a website for it, and then I made like a sticker for it, and then a sweater for it, and then I was like, okay, I went back and I added other things to the website, so now it looks more like a perfect like. And Tommy and I did learn fabric, and we have a YouTube series video on the playlist. So I added the playlist right there in the web. So it's been slowly enhancing itself to do some different things. So it was more of like an experiment, but I was like, oh, this wasn't that bad, and it sounds kind of interesting. And I did wordsmith some of the words, so it made more sense to how I felt I wanted the website to look and feel. But to your point, Seth, it was a great for like the initial idea, the generation, a lot of the initial code, and then I just kind of like clean it up a little bit, and fabricators are made possible by Microsoft Fabric and the letter F. That's kind of the ending of the website. So
that's amazing. Let me give you one. I think I don't want to put the expectations high, but this may blow your mind. I do a lot of discovery calls on understanding departments, what data sources do they use, how do they utilize them, what's their process, who do they share it to, what are their problems, like where in terms of their current workflow, how much time do they spend? And I have a pretty like solid agenda at this point in my life doing so many. The problem is you have to follow up and then kind of write that discovery recap, especially when it's happening a lot. Well, since I knew I followed this agenda always kind of to the T in terms of this is the same understanding for a department or organization, they actually created a pretty long prompt saying, I want you to take this transcript, this VTT, and I want you to spit back out for me this format. I said, write me the data sources, like what do they use kind of thing. And in this format, the prompt is long, but anything I upload comes back perfectly. You would never believe how much content AI gets out, but also the quality and right to the T. Here's the data sources they use. SharePoint. They have problems with SharePoint. Here's the process that they use when they use SharePoint, and it breaks down each data source based on just the conversation. And we talked about,
but this is good though. This is what I want. This is
awesome.
This is where I think AI should be being used.
Yes.
Is like if we can, and I think to your point, Tommy, you change your process a little bit by having, here's my prompts. Here's like, you have a format that you can use. And so the idea is like you using the AI to summarize something that you're talking with verbally. So we can have the normal natural conversation, and out of that pops an automatic piece of documentation. This is exactly what I think the use case is.
And I think the more of, and this made me think more about our conversation last week when we're like, how can we create like discovery or reporting requests? And the more I think about it, like if we, as from the human side, because I think there's a big part here where AI doesn't do everything, and just establishing that right up front. All these situations are cool, but it's still very much, especially in our space, takes our ability to one, prompt, but also two, understand what that team or process is trying to do. Where I know this agenda that I'm following, I know what I need the recap to look like.
I like that a lot, actually. And
I will share it to you privately.
Yes, exactly right.
Yes.
So
yeah,
the question I had though was, where do you upload your VT? So VVT or VTT? I don't know what it's called.
It's a VTT.
VTT. Okay, that is a transcript that is generated from a video. So where does that get uploaded to? That way your ChatGPT can use it. Is it you're using like VS Code to do this?
Module, all local, baby.
All to local. Okay, that makes sense then.
So
because I was wondering, because I was looking, I'm familiar with using ChatGPT in the web browser, and that's kind of like my main interaction with the AI or that particular AI that's coming out. Excellent.
But okay, I mean the recognize with ChatGPT that, like, what was it? Samsung started putting proprietary code in there, and it was like, so like it's not proprietary. It's not your local domain. It's not
going to the ChatGPT.
For what it is. So it's good that you're doing that in a completely separate way. But I think naturally people are gravitate towards ChatGPT as like, oh, the solution to. And it's there are solutions that you can use like for large language models that are like locked into your domain. So look into those as opposed to airing out your proprietary information.
Because there's enterprise Bing now. There's actually a GPT-4 all, which is actually the local.
Yeah, the Bing.
But
I saw Bing security around that. Yep.
Yeah, I saw Bing now changing the messaging, like, oh, this chat session is only for you. It's only for your organization.
We're running a company. Listen, I'm running a company here. I understand. I've gone through the legal ramifications with all this, so we kind of checked the box.
And I not questioning you, Tommy. Certainly not doing that. But it is worth noting, like, in this world, I think actually Microsoft's got to step up on competitors regardless, because the level of security that they have always instituted in their products and are very, very cognizant of, I think set them in a realm of a trusted position when people are like, you're locking stuff into Azure AD, like all of this, you want to use this? Okay, great. It is part of your company. It's not going to be aired out to wherever. And that is one of these things that I think with a lot of these large language models or all these services that are out there, you've got to read the fine print before you start utilizing them for proprietary things. Right. Like I was saying, like, I think there's a lot of usage, a lot of things you can use it for that are generic, that are, you get a lot of free wins around like administrative work, like I was outlining. But like once you get into the code aspect of things and proprietary information, like, definitely know what you're using for. One of the questions though that I wanted to follow up with regarding this, like how have you guys seen this seep into organizations? Because it's a major topic. I would think across many, especially mine, right? Like how do you use AI or large language models to impact, I think, the production of the business, or deliver a better product, or whatever the case may be? Is that seeping into conversations, or are you guys engaging with customers that are kind of talking around it on the periphery of their reporting solutions or stuff they want to do with data?
Well, I think we're in the beginning stages of that, where that's beginning.
Of course we are.
But like really early stages. I personally have not seen any organizations heavily utilizing it, or even
Correct.
I would say it's like the initial
Mhm.
seed right now in terms of where it
Yeah.
could be utilized.
Mhm.
I know some organizations are. I haven't worked with any that are utilizing that from not just an independent point of view, but our example of, hey, we're going to do our report request through AI, where it's the users interacting with a service at the organization. It's more, we'll provide this to you for your independent work.
Mm-hmm.
There was. Go ahead,
Well,
Mike.
I'll say where I see ChatGPT, or where I'm seeing AI being utilized, at least initially right now for organizations, I think it's a lot around the developer. So I think if you look at the spectrum of people that are willing to start leveraging AI, if it's not built directly into a product, like I'm in PowerPoint and it's AI generating slides for me or AI generating information,
Yeah.
it's typically not designed, like it's not, nor business users are not immediately picking it up. Where I would say I'm finding most people using it right now is it's in the developer community. So the developers
Yeah.
are the ones that understand how to write code. And I heard someone say, likening the prompting experience is like writing code or writing programming language, but using just straight regular language. So the developers, I think, are already understand what's going on there. And there's a lot of these little things like stuff that just kind of falls out of your head. Like, hey, I need to write a regex that parses this thing. I need the second element of this regex element, right? It's the little tasks like that. Like,
Little
yeah, I
things,
could figure it out, but it'll probably be easier if I have it do this. Or, hey, can you write a function that does this? Tommy and I were doing Learn Fabric the
I
other
was
day.
going to say that, or
We were using Learn Fabric, and this would have been a great place where AI should be put in place. But Tommy and I were using Fabric. We needed to write a pandas function that would create a new column. And so Tommy basically said, using this and this and this, create a new column by multiplying this column times that column. And it came back with a very close to the right answer. And we were able to interpret the answer and then rewrite the language using a Lambda function. We were able to build out the Lambda function that we needed in the Python notebook. So it was very close. And the other thing that is interesting here with that as well is, okay, maybe you don't understand what a Lambda function is. Once it returns the answer, you can say, explain this answer to me. And then it will go through and it will read that code that it wrote you and try to explain it in a different way. So I think, again, that's my experience so far. Where am I seeing AI and things being actually used inside organizations? I just paid for the Microsoft Teams Premium. So you can buy Teams Premium. And with Teams Premium, every meeting you record now comes with a full transcript and chat stuff. And there's a whole bunch of extra things that go along with it. And what you're seeing now, and I think this is where it's going to get really interesting, is to your point, Tommy, right? Take the VVT file and say summarize, right? It's now automatically doing that for every meeting. So you go into a meeting invite, you now have who talked when as a line chart, and then you have the actual transcript, and then you have meeting minutes or summary of that meeting as well, right inside Teams.
So I want to lean into that one a little bit though. Like, there's a theory I'm thinking of like right away where, and I forget what it was. It's not a theory. It's a practice where essentially when you're taking notes, when you're writing something down, you're more prone to remember it than not.
Agreed.
Right?
Yep.
And to me, I do the same things when note taking, and I've developed, I think, very proficient note taking skills over the years as I engage in any meeting, because I need to make sure that I understand in
100%
context,
agree.
right? Like 3 weeks later, what we talked about.
Yep.
Do you find though that using AI in these cases is just is creating value, or is it cheapening that experience, or disengaging people further to the point where they're not going to retain or not understand like what were the key points to them, instead of an AI engine going, oh, these were the key points of the meeting?
It's your methodology.
You know what I'm saying?
I would wholeheartedly disagree that it cheaps out.
Disagree?
At least I disagree that it cheaps out what you would retain without it. And I think it's part of the understanding of what AI is doing. If I'm just relying on that, going, oh, AI will take care of it. Yes, cheaps out. I still write notes during it. I know though, I don't have to rely on everything single thing that's said. More importantly, what the AI does is provide provides great structure, both from Mike's point with the development and the notes that come out, where it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Well, let me go back to the recording, or
I
let me go
suppose.
back, and I can review that with my notes. We're saying here's some of the action items that were talked about. Here's some of the summaries. Like, yes, I remember that. I go back to my notes. Compared to me, when without any recording, you're going, oh my gosh, I need to remember that. Let me remember that in a certain way. I get a lot more spit out information. It's the same exact thing in my head when it comes to when I'm writing it for like the Lambda function. It didn't give us the right answer, but it sure as heck gave us the right structure of an answer. It was like, oh, I see how it's Lambda, row,
Okay.
column. And I can then begin to format. That's how not just that one line of code needs to get output, but anytime I'm adding a new column, it's this structure. Okay, now I understand that it's the same thing right now with the notes, conversations, and again from the development too, where it's providing that structure. I still have to do work. If I'm just relying on it, it's not going to help. But just knowing that's kind of almost like a supplemental side that has been the catalyst from a value point of view.
Yeah, there's a couple chat comments around this as well, and I think that's a good it's a good different perspective too, right? Because I started the comment with I've it's taken years to perfect how I want to do that, but in most cases, I think that is actually a challenge for folks to consolidate a meeting with the appropriate bullet points, and if
Right.
it's doing that for them because that's a difficulty, then that makes it there's a ton of value there.
So
Because there's also actions that come out of there too,
Yes.
okay.
which I do like, right?
So
Go
ahead. Sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm
No,
getting excited.
it's just like the outcomes of a meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Because that is one of the things that I would hope is in every meeting I'm attending is there's action items for
Yeah.
somebody to do something because that's why we're getting together. And I have seen even one of the folks on my team utilizing that as like a bullet list. The challenge or not challenge, like the thing I would look forward to is like an integration at some point where if there are actions, I want to push those into the system of where I keep track of actions, right? Or build them out like Jira or something like that.
Oh, this is awesome that you're saying these things. So in the Microsoft Teams AI stuff, right? So let me say it this way. I'm not going to stop taking notes, right? When I'm in the call and I'm listening to what's happening, I'm actively listening by focusing on what you're saying and I'm taking the notes. That still happens like normal. However, there are things that I miss. And so as one who's letting the AI also listen to it, it's like having a second set of information that's also appending. So to your point, Seth, like, is it going to weaken my note-taking ability? Is it going to weaken this? No, I don't think so. For me personally, no, because I've already formed a good pattern around this. Now, new users or young employees of companies may lean on the AI too heavily, potentially. They're not actually forming good habits around, listening to what's happening in the meeting. However, what I would say is not everyone always can attend all meetings. And sometimes you're catching someone up to a meeting.
It's not a good
So
point.
the other part of AI that I think really is very relevant here is when you use the Teams Premium, it has this little area called Notes and AI Notes. So Microsoft is integrating this thing called Loop now inside their meetings. And inside Loop, you can add follow-up tasks. So I can actually add tasks there. It goes to your to-do, and it automatically synchronizes them across everything. So now what I can do is I can go back to the meeting. I can look at the AI Notes, and the AI Notes is doing something interesting. It's almost doing like topical summaries. So as I take notes, someone says a statement or a sentence, and I write down, okay, I need to do XYZ thing. I need to build this in the model, right? Mine are very like mechanical and very tactical for what we're seeing there at the very pointed element. The AI is taking like an example of their AI notes. It's taking like 4 bullet points. Mike said something, customer said something, Mike said something, Mike said something. It's taking like multiple statements and saying, okay, I'm going to take these 4 key points and summarizing all of them to say, we talked about model optimizations. Certain visuals are running out of capacity. Here's what we're going to have to do to fix this. And they talked about solutions for fixing that problem. So it's more of like a thought as opposed to just single things, right? So it's those kind of items that are coming up. So I will say this for me. I think Teams Premium for where I'm spending it right now is probably worth it because there's things that are moving so fast, and particularly in the consulting space, it goes quick.
Yeah.
For every organization to add every user with a Teams Premium, I'm not sure it's going to be there. And where I'm worried about some of this from an AI perspective is how many different AI things do I need to subscribe to pay a couple bucks per month to get value out of them, right? So, this to me, there's another part of this too, where we're saying like, am I paying $10 to ChatGPT? Am I paying $10 to Microsoft Teams? Am I paying $5 over here? So look, at the end of the day, you're paying $100 a month for all these random AI generation tools to do things for you to help you automate. Is that you have to kind of think internally, how well will that summarize what you're trying to do?
Well, but at the same time, like, so I was looking and I tried to find it, but I couldn't. I saw a LinkedIn post yesterday where I think it was a consulting firm that had done some analysis across a team of users. I don't have much more detail around like what it was they plugged AI into, but what they saw was there was they basically did some A/B testing. Here's a group of people. Here's the output that they had based on the work items that they do. Here's a group where we taught them nothing about it.
Yes. Yep.
And their quality and like slightly less quantity, but the quality of work, or was it both? I think let's just say better quality, better quantity. And then the people that they did teach like about how to utilize AI were even better than that. Right. So if that's indicative, where I see this going is things like the Teams integration. Yeah, of course, all this is going to cost more money, right?
Totally.
But if there are proven methods to show that this $10 a month is saving you like $100 a month because now all these people are much more efficient than they were before, there's a lot of value there, right?
I
Because
totally would agree.
I could say, hey, there's a great use case here. What I would like to do is I'm a heavy Microsoft user. I use Jira. If I can take a meeting, dump out these notes and a consolidated summary of this plus actions, and I know this is going to turn into a work item, I want to like let me select the things and then it just goes and creates a work item, which gives me the framework to go add the specific requirements at some point, because it's the what I call like just the I'm trying to find a nice PC word here. Like it's the wasted time of like I have to go create this work item. I have to create it. I have to create the description. I have to do all these things. Is it like, man, if you simplified that, that's 15 minutes of my time. Boom.
I need
every time I have one of these meetings.
Yep.
Right. So that's a huge time saver. And I think that if there are use cases like this where it's just this verbose activity that we have to do every single time, man, that's definitely worth the money. And if you like multiply that by team, multiply that across the company and all the dev teams and all the managers that are or product people that are creating these work items, like yes, of course, building the framework and allowing me to automate a lot of the construction of, oh, this is coming from Seth. He needs these 5 properties set up on all of his things, and this is the project that it needs to go to, and da. Like that is not hard to figure out if we're consolidating entire conversations, right? The consolidation of like what's the configuration to go link into systems that are the workhorses and engines for review in processes that we already have set up, right? Like, and I don't have to do all that work, man. That frees up so much time for me.
A few quick shout outs for my Take My Money services. Read AI is kind of like that Teams Premium on steroids with the action items. I use Notion for note taking, for milestones, for articles. It's like a second brain, but also for all the stuff I do with work. It has an AI feature. You click space. It's basically ChatGPT ingrained. One thing I'm shocked about today, I really want to get to, is we're talking about AI and BI. And one thing we have not, if you were to say in the beginning of this, where would my money go in terms of where this conversation would lean? I would say it's going to be our coding, our development, data modeling, DAX. We haven't touched on that. And I think it's very indicative. What I'm trying to figure out, is that indicative of the technology where it's at now, or where our needs really are, what we see on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think to me, my comments are based around like where is AI helping me right now?
Okay.
Right? Like I don't once we start to get implementations of easy use code editors in, for DAX and things like that, dude, we'll be talking about that for many podcasts. But at the same time, like, how do you perfect this? How do you make it better? Like, am I excited about it? Yeah. But I think right now nothing's integrated much in the same way that we're talking about Teams integration. Like
Yes.
they've implemented AI into this thing.
Sure.
There's nothing that is in the wild that we're currently utilizing that's in Fabric, that's in Power BI, that's in this, that just lets me go, hey, okay, let me validate my DAX. And is it good? Is it bad? Do I need to prompt it? Do I need to like give more details? So like that's where I took this conversation today, is like, what are the things I'm using right now without a, hey, I'm copy and pasting and moving this over here, and then it doesn't understand the model, and yeah, it's kind of there but not. Is that part of a conversation? I guess, but it's not something I'm really excited about at this point. It's not a time saver for me yet.
Okay, let me give you a real good practical example on this one. So you're right, Seth, and I think what we're going to start seeing is we're going to start seeing AI come closer and closer to where we're doing real workloads. This is the trend I think is happening, right? Teams is one example of this. Another good example is I actually use Databricks, and we use Databricks Premium. Inside Databricks Premium, you get a Databricks Assistant, which is dang stinking good. It's literally like a new flyout panel that, as you're writing code in the notebook, in the different cells, it's prompting you, or you can ask questions about things on the left-hand side. So you can ask questions around, help me find this Python function, help me write this thing, help me. And what it's doing is the assistant is actually, one of the biggest things you do, especially when you're using Databricks,
Copilot,
at least for me,
GitHub Copilot, yeah.
It's like a Copilot, but it's more focused around assisting you writing those notebooks and code pieces, right? So you're writing. If you're trying to, you have a data frame, you're trying to run a data frame to back to the lake somewhere, right? The AI assistant realizes is understanding a bit more of your code, and it understands, here's some articles that you may want to read that are helping you optimize this thing. Hey, you're using Delta Live tables. Hey, you may want to read this article around, here's a section, here's some summary of that information that's coming back to you as you're writing it, so you can just quickly glance over or see things.
You obviously don't know what you're doing, so here's some stuff.
Here you go.
Here's some context.
Here's some context. But it's that kind of stuff. It's the things that, and I've heard it said to me a number of times, right? If someone's new to something, you don't understand the keywords that you need to Google or search for to get the answers you want, right?
Yeah.
So part of this now is the context of the code you're writing, the context of what you're doing can automatically start being presented in this. And I would highly recommend, if you use Databricks today, go look up or research what this, Databricks Assistant is doing inside this. Because I could also imagine, like, you're writing, like, one thing that Microsoft is totally missing is there's a whole bunch of documentation on their learn.microsoft.com. There's a whole bunch of documentation on Microsoft.com around doing things in Power BI. What we need is desktop to have an AI assistant in the same way. Like, don't try to write the DAX code for me. Try to point me to where things can happen or things can be. And the neat part about this would be really helpful would be, as a user of Power BI or other tools, let me source where the information comes from. As a good example of this one, Tommy, you pointed an AI at DAX.guide, right? You pointed the AI and said, here is the source of truth and information. It's a website that creates content. Point to that location and then use it to help me build things. Or if I ask a question about add columns or examples around different, it's already right there. The website has the links and the code for everything. So use that to help me produce what I want to produce.
Let me do you one better with that. Not only can you have that little DAX script, but I can have a page or a CSV on a table saying, here's my table format now. Point to this file saying, this is what my table structure is. Point to DAX guide. And even other things we utilize externally, not just the Power BI world, PBI tools, the command line. It's great, but no IntelliSense in the terminal. You got to really look at the description. I told it, I said, create a new project for me. Create a Python or a PowerShell module with IntelliSense around all the parameters around this PBI tools command line. Pointed to the article. I have all IntelliSense now for every command in PBI tools. So we're getting to a really crazy point in terms of what's already available in Databricks, what Power BI's developed, where this is going to be part of the micro workflow of the personal developer, where Mike, we didn't have to know the Python Lambda function, or we, in terms of, or we didn't have to
We
do
learned
in
it.
Google searches.
Like, here we
learned it.
go.
Now we know it.
Here's what need to be written in this format for Data
Yeah.
Wrangler. Like, okay, cool. Like,
And
this is the thing. Data Wrangler needs the same stuff. Like, this
and
is
it's going to probably.
Yes, and it should be like literally everywhere. Like that. This is what I think is going to start happening. And so, we're talking about a lot of code-based things, but I think that makes the most sense to people because these are things that you have to go figure out and learn how they work. But I think there's a lot of need here as well to what we were talking about was we need to use AI to help us gather requirements around reports.
And
we need AI to present, hey, what I'd like to have is, hey, here's my report. Here's the documentation of the report. Here's the model.bim file, right? Hey, Mr. User of this report, right? Go to my SharePoint site, ask a couple questions of that report. And what should be happening is there should be a system where I can say, that user request form that comes to me and says, hey, I need a report that does this, this, and this. That input, that question should be asked into an AI. The AI should already have all the definition of the existing data models and all the existing reports that are out there, be able to scan and read all that. The user should ask the question and the AI should be able to say, hey, did you know we have this report called sales report? It's located here and it answers these kinds of questions. And so the AI should be pointing people to things we've already done and work that has already been created. That way we don't have to build a new report. And if it doesn't exist, the AI should be able to say, we have something similar. Does this meet your needs? The user can say, no, I need some more help. I'm looking specifically for these types of calculations. And the AI should be able to read that and be able to say, oh, let me help gather some more requirements for you. And then it prompts, there should be a series of prompting that says, okay, what is this report for? Okay, it's going to do this. What is the audience of this report? Okay, here's the audience. How long would you expect to be in the report? Okay. Do you think you need an overview page that does, like, there should be all this like natural language communication style that says, here's my prompts as a BI developer. Here's the things I care about. Talk to the AI and have all that done up front and spit back out to me. And then I should get a summary of that.
Thus the crux. Oh, I was going to say the crux of my argument here is all the coding is great, cool. But my argument is the reason why we focused on the soft skills in that area. I can make the argument, and I'm convinced to myself from all the people I know in BI, all the tools available, the largest gap between BI is not the coding right now. It is that gathering requirements. It is that communication with the business where I see the largest gap and the largest need for AI or these types of services. The coding, great, cool, awesome. I can still Google it if I didn't have it. But this ability, and a lot of organizations, they struggle or have a wider gap between their ability to gather requirements effectively, to gather insights effectively, and to communicate back to the organizations effectively more than they do with their DAX or their visualization skills. So I see AI having a much larger impact and much larger need than right now the development side.
I'd agree. And it's just going to be like, how do you build that? Like, so to me right now, the question is, how do you build that tool? Like us as developers or us as report creators, how can we feed, like the question in my mind right now is, how can the developers of Power BI and Fabric level things, how can we feed the AI what it needs in order to be more accustomed to what we're building inside our organization? How does that work? Right. To me, that's the unknown at this point. Like, I know it's needed. I think it would be great to have these kind of additional enhancements in this way. I think this would be very effective for what I need for a business use case. But how could I get a, what is the virtual assistant, right? How can I get the virtual assistant program to utilize something that would say, okay, put my virtual assistant on a page that talks about Power BI reports. I'm going to feed the virtual assistant all the information about my model, and it will then be able to direct users' questions to what is happening, right? I would love to feed an AI all my process documents, right? I have how to request a workspace, how to ask for a new change to my certified data set, right? These are all processes that we've built. I want to communicate them to the AI so the AI knows how to answer those questions. So I'm not spending the time to do that. So the first tier 1 support should be somewhat generated by an AI system. and then only the best stuff of that comes out to me and summarizes things more for me. And that's where my head goes. I'm not sure if we're all there yet.
No, I
Do
think
all the things for me.
well, my dream is a dynamic form where they say, "What's your request?" You start filling it out. Sounds like you're looking at sales. Well, what type of sales? And having that conversation. Sounds like you're looking for a data dump. Please find another company.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like you're looking for pagination reports. We recommend you read these 5 articles from Microsoft to figure out how to build your own reports.
Please find some targeted KPIs and get back to us. Thanks. Click.
Yes.
Close window.
Yeah. Anyways, we've done it again. We've wasted a perfectly good hour of time. I think this has been a great conversation. I still am thinking there's going to be more conversations around AI, where it fits, how it integrates with different products or tools. If you have any examples of AI areas or AI that you've integrated with, so I'm actually very interested myself, is if you have found anything that you've worked on in your company or other companies, put it in the chat window. We'd love to talk to or see examples of where this AI is best utilized inside organizations. I have a very firm feeling that this is going to continually changing the landscape of how we do business, and it's going to become an expectation that if your tool does not have some sort of AI generative feature to it, it won't help you. You won't use it. You won't want to pay for it, right? If I'm going to pay for some service, it needs to have some sort of generative AI piece a part of it that helps me build better things. Anyways, that being said, we really appreciate all your listenership. Everyone has been great. The chat has been very vibrant today. Lots of good comments there. So thank you very much, chat, for jumping in and adding additional context and comments. With that, our only ask, if you like this content, if you found something of value here, if you learned something new, please share it with somebody else. We'd love for you to communicate with somebody else about the value that you were able to see or bring from this conversation and this podcast. Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. Have a question, an idea, or topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode? Head over to powerbi.tips/podcast. Finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. and join the conversation on all of Power BI Tips social media channels.
We should have AI generate our outro. Can we do that? Can we just take? We should do that
at least for our AI episodes.
Exactly.
I guess
at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'll have to think about that one. Anyways, thank you all very much. We'll see you next time.